Disney is often regarded as one of the world's most special treasures. Their movies can bring full-grown men to tears and inspire young people onto the right path. The company owns nearly 40% of the world's film industry, and it's one of the oldest film companies on the planet. They have one of the strictest brand images of all time, and although in more recent years they've been expanding into PG-13 content more often, everything produced by the Walt Disney Company must be strictly family-friendly in all facets. This, however, comes at a price. To maintain this brand image, Disney sometimes has to go to the extremes, and they've been caught doing some sickening things in the past just to preserve their image. Disney, similar to McDonald's, will hook in consumers while young and keep them satisfied with memories and nostalgia of when they were children. There's no way something I loved when I was a child is now a corporate conglomerate that owns almost half of the US film market, right? I warn you viewers, and I'm only going to say this once. If you take the red pill of watching this video, your perception of the Walt Disney brand may change forever. And I'm warning you now, it gets dark. I'm only going to say that once. So don't blame me if I ruin Disney for you. So if you clicked on this video, you may or may not know what an iceberg chart is. In case you don't, I'm just going to explain it now. An iceberg chart is a way of visualizing information with more well-known topics on top and more obscure facts on the bottom. So without further ado, let's follow this rabbit hole down to the bottom and see what awaits us. So we're starting things off light and breezy. It's a Morse code of Walt Disney's opening day speech from 1955 saying, "To all who come to Disneyland, welcome. Here, age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savour the challenge and promise of the future." Simple stuff, top of the iceberg, we can move on. This next one's quite funny because it's Hidden Mickeys, and I knew when I saw that name, I remembered hearing it somewhere, and in fact, yes I have. If you've ever watched Swoozy's Confessions of a Disneyland Employee Part 2, he brought up the fact that Disney might actually be trying to brainwash people by putting the Mickey Mouse logo everywhere. They're potentially meant to be subliminally influencing how people who go to Disneyland view the Disney brand due to the mere exposure effect. If people are familiar with the Disney logo, they therefore like Disney. The Indiana Jones rope I couldn't find much on other than the fact that Indiana Jones' father once got rope burn. I'm sure if you know something about this, please let me know in the comments, but we're at the top of the iceberg, so I'm just going to move on. I think that the green stuff refers to the shade of green paint that Disneyland paints things when they want stuff to disappear. Often wirings and other things necessary to make shops and rides work, but the Walt Disney Company thinks that these things ruin the illusion of the park. So what do? They paint it this dull green, and it works quite well actually. It hides things from plain sight. Jungle Cruise maps was another one that I had trouble finding. Maybe it's just because these things are just too innocent for me to think that they're a problem. And I did a lot of research on this, and it's a vague term anyway. What I did find, however, was once Disney had to shut down a scene from its Pirates of the Caribbean ride, which was dubbed as Bride Auction, and it depicted women lining up for an auction. What the fuck, Disney? The Mark Twain Wheelhouse is a secret experience from what I've researched online. It seems as if when people go to the Mark Twain riverboat, if you are randomly selected to go up to the wheelhouse, they can ring the bell, blow the horn, and go around the engine room. So that's quite a nice, light-hearted one. Pluto interacts with service dogs is another nice, wholesome entry. It refers to the cast member of Pluto interacting with guide dogs who come to the park. I mean, look at this, it's just cute. Disney Make-A-Wish is another vague one, but I've interpreted it as the aid that Walt Disney gives to the Make-A-Wish. Since 1980, it's helped grant over 140,000 wishes, which is just very special. I thought that it's important to know that for as much as Disney will show controversy further down the list, it's not always black and white. The company does indeed do some sincerely kind gestures, and it just so happens that sometimes it doesn't. Did you know that 80% of the plants at Tomorrowland are edible? I'm not sure if you're allowed to just go all Augustus Gloop on everything, but Disney says that 80% of the plants in their Tomorrowland are, in fact, edible. The Utilidor system actually has a Wikipedia page about it, lol. It simply just refers to a system of tunnels at the Magic Kingdom in Florida, primarily, that allows cast members to get around the park, and it's faster than running through the crowd, so there's this underground system of tunnels that cast members can just book it down if they need to be somewhere fast. While Disney wants you to think that Mickey Mouse was Disney's first character, it was actually Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. I think we've all seen the Steamboat video, and that's what Disney wants you to think. But in fact, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit predates Mickey. He was featured in 27 short films between 1927 and 1938. Mickey was created in 1928, so it was close, but Oswald did come first. Okay, Andy's Coming is a bit cringe. And there's a myth that if you go to Disneyland and yell Andy's Coming at the Toy Story cast members, they have to stop what they're doing and get down on the ground. This is false. If you're watching this video, I beg you, please do not yell Andy's Coming at the Toy Story cast members, because they just kind of look at you like, what the fuck? and it's just cringe. If you look it up on YouTube, you can see the first-hand cringe. It's an awful idea. Just don't do it. Do not yell Andy's coming at the Toy Story cast members. They don't get down. Don't do it. So when you go on the Mad Teacup ride at Disneyland, many people don't know that the different teacups have different speeds. They're predetermined, and according to Google, the orange Diamond Cup is the fastest, followed by the Purple Cup. The Heart Cups are the slowest, so if you want a faster ride, don't pick the Heart Cups. The manhole covers are a nice little touch at Disneyland parks. Instead of having just normal manhole covers, which like no one would complain at, Disney's actually gone out of their way to customize their manhole covers, which is just a bit crazy. They went the extra step to have a customized manhole cover with the hidden Mickeys and the Walt Disney logo on it. I mean, you'd have to really be looking out for it, but yes, in fact, they're there. Disney even customized their manhole covers. Okay, now we're getting to some fun stuff where it's kind of a bit edgier, but not like dark yet. Sex in the Lion King is referencing the original VHS release of The Lion King, which halfway through the stars align, literally, in a way that some people think reads sex. It's impossible that this is just an unfortunate coincidence, but perhaps not. It was discovered by a 4-year-old who told his parents, who in turn alerted a local religious group. Here's to say they had to change it when they put The Lion King on Disney+. River County was the first water park at Walt Disney World. It opened in 1976 and closed in 2001 after Disney had built some other water parks, like Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach. That would be the end of the story, but for some reason, River County was never demolished, and so to this day, it sits abandoned, with nature reclaiming it as its own. The Little Mermaid boner is just another plain mishap of animation. I don't know how Disney rationalizes this one, but in The Little Mermaid, the priest that marries Eric and Ursula has an erection. Again, it's safe to say that when they put that in the Disney Plus release, they had to change it, but I don't know what it was doing there. I don't know what it's meant to be. I think they have a reasoning, like they say, oh, it's just his knee or something, but no. During the Second World War, Disney made propaganda films for the Allies. You've likely seen some of these in just frames, like you might have seen Donald Duck saluting Hitler in De Furious Face, or carrying rifles in Commando Duck. And whilst it's funny today, it's often misunderstood. Donald was not a Nazi, he was actually mocking the Nazis in those short films. At first, when I saw Goofy shorts were for adults, I thought this was some sort of merchandising thing, but when I couldn't find anything like that online, I remembered back to a Nostalgia Critic video I saw a few years back and how he made the claim that Goofy was once badass. And getting a few seconds into the video, I understood that that's what this was about. In the 1950s, Goofy had his own show where he was meant to be the everyman, which back in 1950s America meant having road rage, smoking, being sexist, the whole 9 yards. While Mickey was made for kids, these Goofy cartoons were clearly made for adults. I mean, look at this. It's, yeah, clearly for adults. The old Snow White ride was a ride at Disneyland that simply just wasn't marketed right. Snow White, whilst dark, was also a children's fairy tale. Her ride at Disneyland, however, probably not for children. And I'm sure there's a lot of kids that went on that ride as one person and probably came out as another. This one is simply hilarious. I knew about the priest boner, and I'd seen Sex and the Stars before making this video, but we have the banned Tarzan toy, which was released in 1999. It had a voice recording feature, like it didn't really look that good. However, it also came with a stabbing motion if you clicked one of the buttons on its back. Maybe a bit violent, but not too bad, right? Well, because of the way you could move his arms, you could move it in front of his waist, and, well, it wasn't as family friendly as Disney would have wanted it, so it was banned and it was recalled. It was, yeah, done. Disney, especially in their older cartoons, have had some controversies, and with such an old company, things are likely going to catch up with you. Times change and things change. Things that were appropriate in the 1950s simply aren't anymore. What made the Red Man red was a song in Peter Pan that simply isn't viewed as appropriate anymore, and it's seen as a racist stereotype against Native Americans. I loved Peter Pan as a child. I never really picked up on it, but in reflection, it might be for the best. Speaking of racist stereotypes, we have black stereotypes. And again, Disney has had a history of racial insensitivity in parts, and I think the biggest and most well known is Jim Crow in Dumbo. Although we can appreciate that Disney isn't the same company anymore, I think that it's important that we can't forget the history of the company. And actually, as I'm recording this video this week, Disney's actually pulled Peter Pan and Dumbo from the children's profiles. You can't, if you're a child, watch those movies anymore because of their views on race. This one's kind of f***ed, but apparently it's true. When the Pirates of the Caribbean ride first opened, Disney were able to obtain real skeletal remains from a local medical facility. I don't know why they didn't buy fake bones. I guess they just weren't good enough, but yes, actually they used a real skeleton originally. I don't think it's there anymore, but originally, when the ride debuted, they used real skeletal remains. The topless woman in The Rescues Down Under is another decently well-known faux pas from Disney. For some reason, someone in the post-production team tampered with the initial release, and put a picture of a topless woman in there for like 2 frames. It wasn't discovered for 20 years, and when Disney and Disney had to try and recall all of their VHS copies, over 3 million had already been sold. So the damage had already been done, and it was like 2 frames. This was like the 1970s equivalent of sneaking PewDiePie's chair into Rewind, but it wasn't picked up on for 20 years. It was an insane heist. Song of the South is yet another Disney movie that has come under fire due to its portrayal of race. Critics of the movie say that it stereotypes the black vernacular, and it has some other outdated views as well. This movie, out of all of them, has been deemed so offensive that it was never actually released on Disney+. So this is definitely one that Disney wants you to forget about. This is another one about preserving the brand image of Disney. So a lot of people in the past have tried to scatter their loved ones at Disney. So many, in fact, that Disney have had to issue statements in the past saying that people who are caught trying to do this will be escorted off the premises. This is because they want to keep it as the happiest place on earth, where death and thoughts of mortality don't exist, but you are not allowed to scatter your beloved's remains on Disney property. The Who Framed Roger Rabbit panty shot explains itself. 2,000 or so frames through the movie, there are apparently 3 or 4 frames that allegedly have a panty shot of Jessica Rabbit. The quality's just so awful, it's hard to make out. Some people argue that people that suggest this are just revealing more about their own mind, but others think that the animator actually slipped it into the movie. The Haunted Mansion suicide is a theory that's been circling online for a while now. The theory is that once you go into the Haunted Mansion, the only way to come out is to kill yourself, and it's referenced by the ghost host at the start of the Haunted Mansion. He references killing himself as a way of getting out, and at one point it's insinuated that you have to jump out of a window to get out. Quite interesting if you ask me, and very dark, especially for Disney. Nara Dreamland was supposed to be a rip-off of Disneyland. It was made in 1961 Nara, Japan. It's heavily influenced by Disney California, but when Disney came to Tokyo in the 1980s, it started to decline in sales, and in August 2006 it was shut for good, being demolished in 2016, after being abandoned for almost a decade. Discovery Island is yet another abandoned site on Disney property. It opened in 1974 and was opened for tourists to look at animals and birds. The Walt Disney Company, however, was accused of mistreating some vultures that landed on the island, and they admitted that some of the vultures that landed on the island actually died whilst being captured by their employees. There was an entire scandal and they were fined for it, but the island itself was open until 1999, and after that, after it was abandoned, all the animals were relocated to another zoo, and the island's been abandoned since. But as recently as last year, a man was arrested for camping on the island, and he said that he didn't know that it was abandoned. Sexism is a very broad term, but just like with Disney having a history with racism, they also have had a history with sexism. Some of the early princesses were very traditional, to put it lightly. The Goofy shorts had some sexist jokes, and when you break down the stats, men speak a lot more in their movies than women, and there's so much that it's kind of hard to know where to begin with this. It's so broad, but Disney unfortunately has had a history with sexism. Disney created furries. I mean, Zootopia exists, so they've definitely created a new generation of furries from that single movie. But from speaking to a lot of people, I know some people that have had their first crushes on characters in Disney movies. I don't think anyone that I know is a furry specifically that has told me that. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some people that had their first crushes on these characters and just never kicked it. Okay, so now we're getting into the thick of things. Mickey's sex tape is rumoured to be some cartoon created of Mickey Mouse having a sex tape. I couldn't find it online, and I suggest that you don't really search for it either. I think this one is just an urban legend. A lot of people don't know this, and I didn't before researching, but Alien Encounter at Disneyland, it closed in 2003, so it doesn't really matter anyway, was going to use the alien from Alien. This was scrapped though because the Alien franchise was rated R at the time, and you know, Disney got to keep a family-friendly image. Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs is an extremely racist parody of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and it was made by Warner Brothers actually in the 1940s. It's now part of their Censored 11, which makes it sound a lot cooler than it is. But it's so over the top and overtly racist, I don't really feel comfortable talking about it. It's online if you want to watch it, but I wouldn't really recommend. I mean, it's just racist. It's just over the top racism. So yeah, I'm gonna move on. Kimber the White Lion was originally a manga made in the 1950s, and it was adapted into multiple television series in Japan throughout the late 1900s. What's interesting about it, however, is how closely The Lion King resembles Kimber the White Lion. Kimber and Simba obviously rhyme. The antagonists are both one-eyed lions named Claw and Scar. Both movies have a parrot sidekick, and so the producers and the directors of The Lion King all allege that they'd never heard of Kimber the White Lion. But Walt Disney has had a few run-ins with plagiarism over the past few years, so really, I don't think it would surprise anyone if they did pinch a few ideas. Lost Shorts could mean any great deal of things is quite a loose term, so I've just decided to skip over this one. I think it's just referring to lost shorts, and Disney has such a big back catalogue with so many things that's lost now, it's hard to tell what it could be referring to, but there is a Wikipedia page on everything that they've lost over the years, so if you are really interested in its lost shorts, I just looked that up. With Disney needing to maintain its brand image, a few things had to be censored and changed post 9/11. For example, a scene in the extremely goofy movie was cut due to its similarity with firemen helping civilians out of the Twin Towers. They also had to shut down the Timekeeper ride as it gave a 360 view of New York City, including the Twin Towers. Generally, anything with the slightest similarity to the 9/11 attacks were cut. Okay, and from here on out, I'm going to be omitting a few entries, especially because they are just too dark. A lot of them involve deaths in Disneyland parks and creepypastas, and I simply just don't feel comfortable talking about them on this channel. I mean, this channel is quite new, but I just don't feel like this is kind of the direction I want to go. This is too dark for my channel, but I will link the original Reddit, so if you want to have a look at anything you missed, you can do your own research for that, but generally, most of the stuff I'm cutting out here is just people dying and creepypastas. Making Vietnam was anti-war propaganda produced independently in 1969. It featured Mickey Mouse going to Vietnam and immediately getting shot. Again, not something that Disney wants associated with their brand, even if they never made it themselves. It's just something that they don't really want to touch. Mickey Mouse masks were given out to children in the UK in the Second World War, as there was rumours that Germany would attack the UK with poisonous gas. Children were often afraid of these gas masks, so Walt Disney came up with a lighter design for them that looked like Mickey Mouse to help ease children. The sexual assault allegations could refer to a number of different allegations purely because there have been so many people involved with the Walt Disney Company in the past few years that have been accused of sexual assault. I'm not here to say that they did or did not do it, I don't know, but there's been a lot of higher-ups that have been fired for it. Many of these allegations involve underage people, and again, I don't really feel comfortable talking about it, so I'm just going to move on, but if you're interested, do your own research. The hostage crisis took place in the year 2000 and included a man who took his 4-year-old son and a Disney employee hostage. Luckily, it ended with a peaceful surrender after 11 hours, but this is again something the Disney brand would want to not have associated with them. He took them hostage on Disney property. So, the infamous Handy Manny porn hijack of 2007, when Handy Manny was meant to air on television in New Jersey, people waiting to watch their favourite handyman were instead greeted with hardcore porn, as the name would suggest. So yeah, instead of airing Handy Manny, some people, I guess, hacked the TV studio or the station or something, and porn was played instead of Handy Manny. The Black Cauldron Uncut was the original draft for the Black Cauldron, and it was a much darker version than what was actually released, and it included all kinds of crazy imagery. It was, yeah, I mean, I'll probably, yeah, here's a bit, I'm playing some stuff now, here's a bit of that, a bit of this. It was just, yeah, just dark stuff. Okay, we're almost home free. We have subliminal messages, which I think references all of the random messages and signs in Disney movies. Again, Sex and the Stars, The Naked Woman, The Lion King cover, etc. Yeah, so I think that's what the subliminal messages mean. If not, I hope someone tells me in the comments, because I'd be interested to find out what that means. Club 33 is a relatively unknown secret club held on Disney property. It opened in Tokyo and now in Shanghai and Disneyland, Florida. It has a 14-year waiting period to get in, and it's apparently one of the most exclusive places on Disney property. It's one of the only places you can obtain alcohol, and it's kind of like just this secret society. Not very much is known about Club 33 because, again, it is one of the most exclusive societies and only so many people can get in. It has a very long waiting period, as I just said. But right, finally, this is the last one I'm going to be doing. It's the Walt Disney is frozen myth, and the idea is that Walt Disney was frozen in an attempt to perhaps one day thaw him out when the technology becomes available. This, however, is false, as Walt Disney was cremated in 1966, according to sources online. I'm not too sure where it comes from, because I've heard it before, like a lot. But either way, as far as I'm aware, this is false. So that's all the ones I'm going to be doing today. Again, a lot of the lower down ones are simply stories of people who died, or random creepypasta hokum. But either way, if you watched this entire video, I want to sincerely thank you. This video has been substantially darker than what I usually do. Please let me know in the comments what you want to see me do next, as I'm only 6 videos in, and I'm already out of ideas. Thanks for watching.